Hi, I'm Sebastian Vettel. You might remember me from World Championships such as 2010, 2011, 2012 and 2013. Wait, where are you going? No, come back, listen. Put another shrimp on the barbie. No worries, mate. Look at me. My name's Daniel. I'm always smiling and I like flip-flops and I'm faster than my teammates and I'm a big silly idiot and I smell.
Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth, and I'm very pleased to say we have the full team. We have Zog.
Hello.
And Richard.
Hello.
I know what you've been up to, but would you kindly explain...
Do you
honestly know what we've been up to?
Richard, you were looking at a website of some British cars of the 70s, and Zog, something to do with golf and watches. Am I correct?
Yeah, he does know. Yeah, he does.
So, given that is a given, these are the sort of things that you do, what have you been up to? Because we haven't seen you for ages, Richard, how are you?
I've been making a little bit of Top Gear.
Yeah, growing a child.
Being a dad, which
good.
is a job in itself, but a brilliant one.
Has Little Sniff reviewed any cars?
He hasn't. We've watched a couple of Grand Prix together. The last one, actually, it did seem to hold his attention.
Good.
Because as anyone's ever had a baby knows, they get to a certain point and they start taking in the outside world and movement and shape and colour. All good and fascinating things. I don't think he was sitting there going, I wouldn't have made that choice at that point. I think he was just going, oh, look at the cars going around. But I don't know, I'm still convinced that you sometimes kick back against your parents' interests and choices, don't you? So I'm convinced that I don't want to labour this too much and keep going, watch the Grand Prix, son, watch the Grand Prix. Now look, now this is a Fiesta, look, take in this is why it differs from a Corsa. Now, pay attention, tomorrow we're going to talk about tyre sizes, because I think that he will just go, sod off, Dad, I'm going to go and become a landscape gardener or something, which is fine, he can do what he wants.
I'm going on X Factor there.
Yeah, I can't stand it when parents sort of impose their own interests onto children, so we have been watching the Grand Prix together, but if he decides that he hates it, then screw him, he can go and landscape the garden instead.
As I said to my children, Noddy Holder Jones and Kevin Rowland Jones the other day, boys, you carve out your own culture. That's what I said to them. So what have you been up to?
A bit of light maintenance, brake pads, a couple of brake lines, that kind of thing.
Ongoing maintenance.
Well, this is periodic maintenance, I guess. Items, they wear out, you replace them.
On your Porsche we're talking about here.
Yeah,
on venerable.
On the 944. And there's a little bit of rust on the sills coming up that I think may need some attention soon, so I'm starting to think I need to get someone proper and responsible to look at that rather than an idiot with a spanner.
So you're not telling me that you're not proper nor responsible either?
Well, I like to think that I can take on the DIY tasks that come with owning a classic venerable automobile, but my welding skills are primitive.
Welding's a pretty primitive thing, though, generally.
I don't think primitive man did any welding.
I don't know that those robots that are welding sort of super precise components for spacecraft in helium.
Oh, well, no, that I know, but at its heart, welding is just
melting
hot
some metal.
Thing makes two other things join together.
You've summed it up very nicely.
Man make fire, make join things.
And that's why it's fun.
But that's like saying, play the guitar, it's just fiddling your fingers and tunes come out. It's like saying that, isn't it?
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean...
Heathens.
Singing, just speaking, but with a noise melody.
I did actually find quite a good alternate use for welding equipment in the last couple of weeks. No,
marshmallows.
If you've got an old hard drive you want to dispose of, just hook that up to your arc welder, just do a bit of arc welding on the drive that you want to securely dispose of. It's a pretty quick way of melting a huge hole through the platters.
I bet it is.
Give it a go.
I could dispose of almost anything you don't want anymore.
I was almost moved to take an arc welding machine to my computer today, but that's another story. Let's talk about Formula One now that we're many minutes into this show. I went to the British Grand Prix. I went to practice on the Friday and had a listen to the cars. Have you had any more thoughts about the cars? When you see it on TV, does the sound of the current generation of energy recovery F1 cars bug you on TV?
No.
Good point, because I don't think it does translate on TV. But if you go to a race, to a big circuit like Silverstone, and you listen from the tribunes, it sounds like this. I did a recording for you. Listen to this. it's lost all the drama of the... You can even hear the commentary.
That's what it's lost, isn't it? It's lost bite.
Yes, nicely put.
It doesn't make your lungs vibrate like it used to, or your ears tingle, I suppose. It's all a bit too sedate. Oddly, that sort of sounded almost like if I hadn't been told what that was, or if someone had gone, that is a brand new type of Maserati. Well, it wouldn't be a Maserati, because Maseratis, oddly enough, their engine note does have bite, I think, or their exhaust note, rather, has bite. A lot of modern road cars are quite, not noisy, but the tone they have is certainly quite sharp.
There's more an edge to it. The way I see the sound of the current cars is really that the individual cars, the way, but thank you for picking me up on that. The sound
Isn't
of
that
the
like,
individual cars on them.
Synesthesia? Is that seeing colour?
That's seeing colour. That's hearing
audio.
You hear colour.
I see
you hear a sound. You see a colour. Bam. Yeah. On their own, the cars sound great, and I quite like hearing more going on in the car rather than just hearing the engine note. But I do miss having a whole field of cars screaming away the way they used to. The start doesn't have the dramatic sound that it used to have, for example. So I do miss that to some extent.
One of the most extraordinary things I've ever heard is in the V10 era, I suppose. When was it? I went to the Monaco Grand Prix, and the start then, with the echoing off the building,
painful,
was unbelievable. I mean, if you were walking through some woods at sundown and you suddenly heard that noise, you would pap your pants and run in the other direction. It's an incredible crescendo of really, really, as you say, quite painful noise.
Painful, actually painful. And I'm pretty deaf after many years of rock and roll.
But there is an aspect of this that we can lament the loss of that drama, or the loss of that drama, but
celebrate the return of our hearing.
Well, can you actually expect manufacturers to make those kind of engines anymore? If those are the kind of engines that you're going to ask them to make, they're not going to stay in the sport. For all that it is the pinnacle of motorsport, and motorsport is not road technology, there has to be a connection, and F1 needs the connection, wants the connection, because it wants road car manufacturers in there putting money into it. And if they're going to have to make V10 and V8 engines, you wouldn't have Honda coming in.
My learned friend, Mr. Porter, here is raising a finger.
Well, because there's something very interesting which I think exposes the whole folly of F1 and road car relationships, and also, at the moment, rather embarrasses F1, and that is that during the current season, the best-sounding car on the track is the safety car.
Actually, I noticed quite a difference in the sound of the Toro Rosso over any other car on the circuit.
Really?
Yeah, it's got the same engine as the Red Bull, as the Lotus, as the Caterham, but maybe it's a gearing thing, maybe it's something they're doing...
Toro Rosso's Ferrari.
No, the Toro Rosso is no longer Ferrari. It has the Renault engine this season for the first time. It used to have a Ferrari engine until this season. Now has the same as the Red Bull, and it is noticeably raspier.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe it's just Daniel Kvyat being a bit heavy with his right foot or something.
It might be. I don't know, but I know that the factory's in Italy, isn't it? And Italian cars always sound raspy.
Ah, that's what it is.
An old Alfasud or something.
An Italian accent on a French car.
Yeah, it is. They probably just put a farty exhaust on it because that's what Italians seem to like.
You've heard the sound of the cars from the tribunes. Have a listen to this. I was down at the fence. Just listen to what you hear. This is the sound of the cars approaching Stowe, about 100 metres from the corner.
In the second, Fernando on this lap, 40
Now, the engine is not a big part of that audio. You hear the shockwave, that the push of the air out of the way, and you hear the turbos, and you hear the winding down.
It's the turbo you're hearing. You're going to hear some of that air channeling over the car. You're hearing a lot of turbo noise. You're hearing tyres. You're hearing transmission.
It was an interesting thing with road cars. Now, I was at the Myra test track 4 or 5 years ago, and they were running some Jags around. Jag had got cars out on the high-speed circuit, and one day was just watch these things flying past with like I know as a car engineer, and they were going by going this incredible noise. And I was like, that's a weird noise when you're sort of standing by a car that's doing like 150 miles an hour past you, because you don't normally do that, because a road car, where's it doing 150? You're going to stand by the side of the German autobahn. And he was like, that's all you're hearing is aero and tyres there. The engine noise disappears into it, and it's that sort of strange thing. It's a wholly different sound. It's not a mechanical sound, is it? It's just white noise.
It's more of an aeroplane sound.
Yeah. Do you remember, Jog, when we went to Rockingham in 2002, 2003, whatever it was. Champ car race,
Yeah,
race.
yeah.
I remember hearing the turbo cars going around Rockingham, creating this wonderful... It really was very complex sound. I wasn't recording audio in those days. I wish I had been. But Champ Car or IndyCar, anything that has a turbocharged engine, still manages to produce interesting sounds. F1 is struggling at the moment. You know, they're talking about the solution as to being using 2 exhaust pipes rather than 1. They've noticed that if you have 2, there's a quantifiable increase. Maybe it's just...
Well, why stop there? Why don't they have 4?
Why not have 12? 8, have a whole...
Yeah, 1 per cylinder. Let's have 6 and start there and see how it goes.
Sharps
Double it
and
to
flats.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah. F1 is in a particularly contrived era at the moment, isn't it? And it's really starting to become a bit beyond a joke. It feels like you just need to simplify, go back to basics. F1 unplugged.
Although having just suggested you might do 1 per cylinder, I mean, just to state the obvious, the reason why they couldn't do that now is you've got all the turbo and other recovery gubbins in the exhaust, which means you have to have the exhaust funneling down through a single tube, as I understand it. I don't think you can make it
It
work.
has to come into one from the manifold, doesn't it? The manifold has to bring it together to one, so it doesn't have to split out. I was going to say after the silencer, but I've just remembered they don't have those, and that's exactly what they're trying to work against.
But the turbos are kind of silencing. The
Yes,
turbo
it
is
is,
absorbing a
having
lot of energy and
a
sound, otherwise would be
effect,
dumped out into the atmosphere. So the turbo quietens it down.
There's a way round this, of course, is to get rid of the turbos, but if they want smaller capacity, supercharge them.
I love a supercharger.
Because they make an interesting noise in their own right, and they wouldn't,
mechanical.
They wouldn't muffle the exhaust so much.
How do you make an exhaust raspy? You can't do it.
I don't know. Get the man who designed the Alfasud on the phone and we'll find out.
Something to do with the exhaust geometry, I guess.
Pronto? Si.
Hello, is that the man who designed the Alfasud? I'm sorry to bother you. I just wondered if I could ask you something. Where did you get the idea for the rasping exhaust?
I don't remember.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
F1's undergoing some changes and some experimentation at the moment. I was very interested to read this week that they were running the Lotus F1 car, I say Lotus, I mean Enstone, on 18-inch wheels, which was kind of cool. Did you see the pictures of the Lotus with the very low-profile tyres? Yeah, I thought it looked good. Do you think it looked good?
Yeah, it looked alright. It's sort of comical that F1 continues to run on 13-inch wheels.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't think of a road car that... Well, I don't think you can buy a road car that's got 13-inch wheels. It's not new.
I think
You
Mini's
can buy
got...
an old Mini, yeah.
No, most Minis these days are 29-inch rims or something.
Well, that's,
like
that's the thing. It's sort of astonishing how big road car wheels have got now. And yes, you can get super
And how
minis
low
on 18.
profile they can go. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, there's a super mini on 19s. Well, probably minis. You can get minis on 19s.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Your bigger stuff is rolling on 22s and stuff. It's extraordinary.
But is that a reason for F1 cars
No,
to
not
go
at all.
low profile? I mean,
No, because you know what? Car engineers hate bigger wheels because it's harder to get a better compromise between ride and handling. Car designers love them because they make cars look good. So it's a constant battle there. And if you ever say to a car designer, what's your favourite wheel? And they'll just always go for the biggest one because they think they...
it fills the arches
Because
nicer
cars
and
have got
having
bigger.
that sort of, yeah.
I was following yesterday a Vauxhall Nova, and it looked, amongst all the other cars, tiny. It's just like this wee little sort of toy stuck in the real world. And you realise when you see an older car, and I don't think of the Vauxhall Nova as that much older. I mean, I know it's actually sort of 30 years more since that car came out. And that would have been on 13s, and it's sort of all in proportion. But because cars have got so much bigger, the wheels have had to kind of scale up. But for some reason, because the tyres have got more low profile.
I've mentioned this before,
Lower.
there are some cars that look good on smaller wheels. I think the old Audi A2 is one of the few that does. I think the Suzuki Wagon R looks good on small wheels.
The Suzuki Wagon R doesn't look good on anything except fire.
Oh, no, come on!
I'm with Richard on this one.
No!
Why would you
The original-
defend the indefensible?
The original Wagon R is as chic in my mind as a De Chevaux.
No.
Yeah.
No.
In the way that the
The
Panda
de Chevaux
was...
is a very
Yeah.
chic vehicle. You are setting the bar pretty high here.
Yes, it's
You're-
chic.
you're
I don't know
setting
where you're
yourself
getting
up to
chic
defeat.
from. There's nothing chic. I mean, you say chic, and I imagine a very
There's no
elegant
funky guitar
Parisian.
there. There's no-
Yeah.
It's the same sort of
No
thing
killer
that this
bass
new
lines.
Citroen Cactus is aspiring to, that sort of utilitarian chic, like the Panda had.
But no, that's not chic, though. That's just utilitarian. That's a separate thing.
But there's a chicness in its rustic, minimalist, anti-technology quality. Surely, come on, really?
You're talking about the wagon eye here?
You don't see that? Just
no,
me?
That's not chic. Chic, a 2CV would be made chic because it would be fantastically battered, but in
Yeah.
that sort of insouciant, I don't care about
Yeah,
this manner,
yeah, fine.
being driven around Paris by a very elegant woman who is casually and slightly disdainfully smoking in your direction because she finds you ridiculous. And that's chic, but the car is sort of almost just another accessory. Speaking of which, I saw the most fabulous thing yesterday. I was in the countryside doing some filming and we were just loafing around at the side of a country lane waiting for something to turn up, as you often do when you're making television. And this classic Range Rover, in brilliantly battered condition, came charging at the lane. It was like an 80s one. It's like
proper
a sort of late
used
80s, early
working
90s.
Land Rover.
Four-door,
Dark blue,
Vogue.
on those three-spoke alloys.
yeah.
And just a bit shabby, but obviously serviceable, well used,
Yeah.
used probably in the way that it's designed, perhaps
Yeah.
more intended, out in the sticks, charging across fields. But it came thundering up the lane. We've got some crew vans parked there, so they could still get by, but no problem getting by. We've had some other people coming by, and they sort of, ease through, there's a kind of old people driving in the countryside. This Range Rover came charging, just popped a couple of wheels up onto the grass verge, which was perfectly fine to do, and just kept on charging through with a cheery way. And it was this quite young, quite saucy girl driving it, and we all went, but it was the car that made it particularly saucy.
Driving it as it should be driven.
Exactly. Driving it
With
well, the
confidence,
car was
with skill.
superb, and that, I would
Yeah.
say, that was like sort of rural chic.
You see, if I see a French girl in a Twingo, it makes me admire the Twingo more than I did before. The original Twingo, the proper
Yeah,
Twingo,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, yeah.
Driven by a French girl, smoking at every traffic light
Yeah,
she comes to, light a cigarette.
A French girl makes any car look better. I mean,
True,
come on,
yeah,
is there any car that is not improved by having a French girl behind the wheel?
Suzuki Wagon-R.
With jet I could fall out. Talking about
Of a
wheels.
Suzuki Wagon-R, you probably...
Oh, yeah, I'd have to be George Michael in a Range Rover.
Hey, I saw George Michael. Well,
Tell
no,
me.
here's the thing. But this is
Yeah.
the thing. Did you? I don't.
Was he driving? Was he smoking an enormous spliff as he was driving? Was he almost passing out at the wheel?
Well,
Was
no,
he-
but here's a problem. I was driving across the top of Hampstead. Anyone who ever knows this part of town will know, by Hampstead Heath, of which I think George Michael is quite familiar with, by a building called Jack Straw's Castle, which is an old pub now.
which
gym.
might actually be mentioned in Dracula, or if that it's Spaniards Inn is mentioned in Dracula,
Okay, yes,
which
near
is
there,
the
near
other
there.
pub just down the road from there.
So I'd
continue.
come up Spaniards Lane, if you know it, along the side of the heath. I was at Jack Straw's Castle. There's a roundabout
yeah.
there. And from my right came a black new-shaped Range Rover that was turning down the road I was coming out of. And I looked, and it sort of hove towards me for a moment. I looked up, I caught the driver's eye, and I swear to God, it was George Michael, at which point I kind of braced for impact, because we all know what happens
well,
when
you
he's
would.
out in his Range Rover. No impact happened. Off he went on his way, I went on my way, and I happened to mention this on Twitter, and someone replied and went, "Isn't he banned from driving for 5 years?" And he only got that ban about 2 or 3 years ago. And I thought, oh no!
Maybe it wasn't George Michael.
Did you just get George Michael into trouble?
Well, that's the thing, I don't want to dob George Michael into it. I mean, I don't
I like
know
him
the
on Twitter. He's lovely on
Is he?
Twitter.
I don't follow
Oh,
him.
he's funny. He's sweet. He's like a big soft lad on Twitter.
Really?
I'm not a huge fan
That's
of
the
George
thing, no, I
Michael's
think,
music, but
he seems like a nice bloke.
yeah, he's lovely
absolutely.
on Twitter. Can we come back to wheels? You've driven the BMW i3 recently, haven't you?
A couple of times now, yeah.
What about the wheels on that? They're like a bloody de Chevaux in terms of
Yeah, they're very skinny,
profile.
aren't they?
Very skinny, very tall. What are they, 20 inch? 21 or 20?
No, they are 19s as standard, I think, and you
Are
have
they?
20s as an option.
I think the one I had had 20s.
The only 20s are the brilliant, futuristic, big 5-spoke ones. I saw the video that you shot, but I can't remember what you had on them. I think you had the same, those ones that are sort of back-angled spokes.
Yes. Sort of
I think those are
aerodynamic,
19s.
yeah.
Those were on the car that I originally borrowed, and I've subsequently driven one on the bigger wheels,
Yeah.
which I thought would ruin the ride, but actually it's pretty much the same, and it's quite firm, but
and
not terrible.
It doesn't roll. For a car that height, it doesn't roll. Can
Well,
you
that's the thing.
explain
It's
that?
central
Batteries.
gravity's very
Not a
low.
weight low down, yeah, center of gravity on that.
Do you know what's weirder though is that I drove that car, the one on the 19s. I went out onto the Top Gear airfield, not the track because the Stig was doing his business out there, but I went out onto another bit of the airfield where you can get a bit of a lick on. and it was damp, and I chucked it around a little bit just to see what would happen, and I thought the first thing that's going to happen is the front end is going to let go because it has very, very narrow front tyres. There's not so much weight over the back because the batteries are in the floor, and then the motor, and this is a range extender, also had the petrol engine at the back. That's where all the weight is.
Yeah.
So it's going to understeer. That's the first thing it's going to do. And weirdly, it didn't, unless you were really being a bit of a knob about it. It gripped. It had more grip than you'd credit.
This was my experience of it in the wet when I drove it for the day. It was horribly wet and it never seemed to understeer once. It just seemed to stick. That car was using some alien technology, I reckon, to achieve what it does.
It's a good car, isn't it?
And I still have a bit of an issue with the way it looks. But as a functional device, the range extender version was tremendous. But I do like the idea of the tall, skinny wheels. It's quite modern, isn't it?
I think they've done a decent job with styling it. And I don't mind that they've taken a slightly new direction in terms of BMW look. It doesn't have quite such a family look as the old one.
It borrows more from the Mini's rear quarters on the Countryman, you know, that sort of fiddly, funny third quarter, the third light, you know, that step thing that they do. Rather than keeping a straight line between your front door and your rear door and your boot, there's a step in it. The Countryman has that step up for the third light. It's not a parallel line.
Oh, I see. Well, it's sort of right. Yeah, it's a bit
like
deceptive because it has like a chrome. I don't think that's where it's come from though. It steps up because it's dropped down. If you follow me, front door, drop down for back door because it would be a bit claustrophobic in there without. I think so. They sort of drop the window down and then it just pops back up again for the third light. I don't know. It's quite an odd thing, isn't it? But I think it works because it's
never
a
light
concept car.
Yeah.
Sort of look.
So never light a cigarette in the back of the car. You'll get shot by a First World War German, won't you?
What?
Third light. You're looking at me blank. Third light. You know.
Oh, I see. You're never supposed to use a match 3 times, and it comes from the war.
You never light a cigarette 3 times with a match in the trenches.
First time the sniper will get a rough idea of where. Okay, yeah.
But if it's light long enough to light 3 cigarettes, he will have enough time to target you, and the third guy to get a light will get shot.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So
no,
diversion.
I've learned something new. That's good.
Oh, good.
So don't say Macbeth in the back.
Oh!
For some reason. Do you know where that comes from?
Or don't say Candyman 3 times.
So do I. What are you doing, private?
First of all, I'm not a private, I'm your senior designer for exteriors. Secondly, I'm working on this design for the next generation Mini. I'm just wondering if rather than a 2-window design, we put in a C-pillar here and go for a third light.
Nein, never go for a third light. You will be shot.
Don't be stupid. Look, here, I've already drawn it in. Whoa!
You see?
One day I'm going to tell human resources about you.
Gareth Jones on speed.
As you know, I'm a bit of a funny Republican Welsh lefty, really. That's me all over. But you know what? David Cameron said something recently that made me go, bloody hell, I'm actually agreeing with David Cameron.
Was it a comment about Slade being fantastic?
He did say that. It was the only thing that would win me over. He said he was looking forward to a new Welsh Slade album. No, he was saying how much he enjoys the shooting break. No, he wasn't. He said that they're going to change the law to allow local councils to override a national law that says that we are not allowed to have motor racing on public roads in the UK, that you could close a road and have motor racing, which would encourage, and his words exactly, more great events, more motor racing events in the UK. Now, I'm reading between the lines here. Does this mean he's had a conversation with Bernie that said, right, we're still going to keep Silverstone, but we want a London Grand Prix as well? Or do you think this is driven by Formula E's necessity to be seen as street relevant? What do you reckon?
I don't think Bernie is desperately after a London Grand Prix.
He said he is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if Bernie Ecclestone, famed man of his word, Bernie Ecclestone, no way a man who just says things to get attention and what he wants. I don't think he's desperate for it because he wants to keep looking elsewhere in new countries. Britain already has a Grand Prix. I mean, that said, it would look terrific on the world stage because I think most people in the world have heard of London. And I've heard of some of the buildings in it, which if the cars drove past them, then all the better. It would be quite a coup, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
It'd be like a Parisian Grand Prix going round the Eiffel Tower. Everyone would go, bloody hell, they're in Paris. But imagine F1 cars scorching down embankments towards
a phone box for you
Parliament.
to get into. And
Yes,
to
well,
jump
exactly.
in.
The idea
Yeah.
has been done by some people.
Yeah.
But
But actually getting off the ground, I mean, the practical
yes,
considerations.
realistically, it'd be a freaking nightmare.
But what you say about the London landmarks and how well known they are around the world and the market, the value of that from F1's point of view is on the other side of the balance. The reason why, despite those difficulties, it's conceivable that someday it could just about happen.
There is a way that this could happen as well, because I have a plan.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's my new catchphrase for the show, by the way. Uh-oh.
As it should be. We all live in London, and as you know, in the summer, particularly in London, the city fills with tourists. And they bring their dollars and their yen and all these things to our city.
Although
help our
they do
economy go
stand
along.
around in very large clumps, usually school parties in bits of the underground, just when you're trying to get through
Well,
there. To
there
get, but,
is
I'm
your
just-
problem,
I'm just-
right? This is the issue. We, as
Londoners.
residents of London, I would never call myself a Londoner because I always feel like
Oh,
we're all
be a proud
a
Londoner,
bit
come on.
guessed. So we need to get around, and there's tourists in the way. Now, here's my plan. Find a nice big tract of land somewhere up, I don't know, near Stansted Airport so people can fly in, and we build fake London. And all the tourists fly in
Wow.
to Stansted Airport, which is not London, although they try and call it London Stansted. But it's quite nice and pretty up there, and the air is clean. And then they go to fake London. Now, all we need to do is recreate the centre. I think everything you can see from the top of the new fake London Eye, beyond, I would say, sort of the Marylebone Road to the north, and, well, I mean, whatever South London's like, that will just be all set dressing. There'll be sets,
And in
facades.
fact, if you get the people from Elstree and Pinewood, get them to build huge film sets.
Yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't
you could
have
do
to-
forced perspective, so actually
Yeah,
it looks
exactly,
like it
yeah.
goes for miles, but it doesn't really.
Yeah.
Kid, you've been to Disney? We've been to Epcot Centre?
Yes.
It's the American model. This is what they've done. They've got the whole world. Americans don't need to leave America because of the Epcot Centre. They can even visit the Magic of Wales. Yeah, really.
It's a bit magic.
Wales,
I
isn't
don't
it?
remember any
Epcot,
of this.
really? The
Did I
magic
go to
of-
the
yeah.
Epcot Centre?
Yeah, the Magic of Wales. It's part of the UK.
Maybe I was drunk. Maybe I wasn't drunk enough. I don't know, but I don't remember this at all. Anyway,
But in, what do you call it? Artificial London?
fake London.
Fake London.
New London. I don't
New
know.
London.
We'll work on this. We'll have a meeting.
Yeah.
We'll have a brainstorm on this one.
Would you have a Grand Prix because the rules would allow you
Well,
to
this
have
is
it
what
now?
I'm thinking. We have a London Grand Prix in fake London, which will look
Yeah.
just like real London,
Yeah.
and it'll have the middle bit, which is all we need for our Grand Prix.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Imagine, because I'm only going to build this, next year maybe when I can get some money together, all the road surfaces will be really good and smooth.
Well, except that you'd have to kind of mess them up to be just like the road service in the original London, wouldn't you?
Tourists don't know what our roads are like.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, look how modern their roads are. They're all smooth.
It's a crazy idea, but it might just work.
Just we can't tell anyone abroad about this, okay? Because we need London back to get about our business.
I refer you to a tweet I did a while back, I think perhaps at the Korean Grand Prix. You know the Korean Grand Prix, you've got that bridge that crosses the circuit by the start-finish line. Have you seen it? And it's dressed to look like a traditional Korean building.
Yeah.
That is the equivalent of putting a three-quarter scale model of Tower Bridge on the start-finish straight at Silverstone. I suggested this as an idea. It's exactly the same. Imagine if we started putting these iconic facades around Silverstone, you would get the same effect. Now, who runs Silverstone? Not
You'd get
Damon
the effect
anymore.
of
We should
thinking
tell
that
him.
you were on acid when you were watching the race. I mean, you'd...
Well, that's what we get elsewhere. If you look at the Korean and the Chinese races has got giant lily pads, hasn't it, floating around?
But I find this all patronising twaddle when they do this. I mean, and it's like they made all those girls in Austria dress in traditional Austrian costume. And then,
So what?
yeah.
I don't know, it's just nonsense. There will come a point, I know they almost got there this year with all the girls dressed like 1950s housewives. I think to acknowledge it was 50 years of Silverstone hosting the Grand
Yeah.
Prix. But on the
Just
world
like
stage,
American.
I think the trouble is a lot of people perceive Britain as this very old-fashioned place, steeped in tradition, and everyone still wears bowler hats
Yeah,
and smokes
yeah.
pipes and things. And so I suspect a few people, sort of in parts of the US and elsewhere, going, oh, look at those British women in their
traditional dress.
normal British outfits that they probably would wear anyway, because half of Britain's stuck in the bloody 50s, and I just think, stop it.
Yeah,
And
probably
next
true.
year they'll have men in bowler hats.
So, in fact, when we build fake London, perhaps we could do a bit of slight tweaking, and what we'd actually do is to build fake sci-fi London, which has all of
Yes.
basically has all of those landmarks. It's, it's the London that you know and love, but it's all completely sci-fi. There are robots, and you've got people dressed
There's a
up
monorail. There's definitely a monorail.
Going through Big Ben.
and hovercrafts.
There might be, yes, there's hovercraft. There's a way to get out of the Barbican Centre in less than half an hour. It's, all of the things that are wrong with actual London will be corrected in fake London. It's to the point where actually I think I might like to live in fake London rather than real London. Maybe we should leave real London behind for the tourists, and everyone who is actually living in London, get on the bus, boys. We're going to fake London, our new utopia.
Yeah, baby.
The roads are smooth, and Camden Town is a little bit less grungy and smelly and jangly.
The Northern Line runs on time, and there are never any.
Well, now hang on a minute. I mean, we can achieve many things, but that sounds almost impossible.
Okay.
Until
where were we?
We'll have to stick to motor transport rather than public transport. We were discussing Formula One and the law change to allow motorsport, but I think the whole reason for this is the Formula E gig, which is coming to Battersea Park. Formula E seems to be gathering a bit of interest at the moment. It's getting a lot of telly coverage. A lot of motorsport fans I know are watching it because there's some good drivers turning up there now. De Grassi, Senna, Shandok, all perfectly reasonable F1 drivers who couldn't sustain their F1 career for budget reasons, really, because they never got into the very top teams, and as you know, unless you're in the very top team, you're not going to succeed, and the only way you can stay there is with budget. So Formula E's got some good lads and lasses. 2 women. Catherine Legg, I'm very pleased to say, is in there. And I counted, I think, 7 ex-A1GP drivers in Formula E, so it almost is A1GP reborn, which is no bad thing, really. Many of the teams are the same. The Chinese team, the same people used to run the A1GP. EDAMS, they ran the French and the Swiss teams in A1GP. Am I getting boring now?
No, I think
I went into one about Formula E, didn't I?
I mean, I want to see the first race. No, I'm going to be very interested to see how this series pans out. I love the idea of it. I don't like
September.
the idea.
It crosses over with the F1. It starts in Beijing, the first race, but before the end of the F1 season.
But it is basically in the off-season from F1's point of view, a bit of overlap. I like the idea of motorsport trying to have its first proper electric racing series. And I like the fact that they're going to try to do something a bit more urban rather than all being track-based. There's a couple of things that do really bug me. This whole fan voting boost. For a boost thing. That is so stupid. That really turns me off.
Unless you're Karun Shandok, in which case you're going, now, hang on a minute. How many people live in the country where I'm from? Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And here's the thing, though. I think they've learnt something from Bernie here. Bernie always puts stuff in that no one really likes because it creates a bit of a controversy and therefore gets people talking about
Bernie.
it. Like Bernie, yeah. And I think the fan boost thing is arguably in some ways, when you write a document for a format for a programme, you hand it in, you always put something in that you know they're going to take out and you let them take it out because it gives them ownership of it. I think it's the same psychology here.
I hope you're right. But I don't know, I've got a horrible feeling they're serious about it, and to me that does really undermine the racing element.
The credibility of it, yeah.
I mean, the plan is still to have them swap cars, isn't it?
I believe so, 20 minutes into the race,
sort of the top-up refuelling, recharging problem.
Yeah, that's a flaw.
I don't love that idea.
It's inelegant, isn't it? But I just think that's a technical constraint. What I do think about this city racing is that it gives me hope for the return of the Birmingham Super Prix.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
Dust down those 6R4s and we've got ourselves a support race.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, you'd have to put electric motors in them to fit in with the concept. They're going to end up racing i3s, aren't they, or Renault Leafs?
It may just bring us back round to where we where we started, or where we were talking earlier on. Now, because I was thinking the sound of current F1 cars, it's tempting to say, well, because they're not V8s or V10s or V12s. But V6s can sound fantastic, and I give you Exhibit A, the V6 in the Metro 6R4.
Yeah.
Amongst many others. I mean, we can go into Maseratis.
Was that twin turbocharged or supercharged and turbocharged?
It wasn't anything charged.
Really?
No, that was the whole point.
Wow.
Austin Rover decided to go, in conjunction with Williams, who originally engineered that car, to go large capacity, naturally aspirated to get the torque, where everybody else went turbocharged or supercharged, or in Lancia's case, both. And the history never really proved who was right. Well, I suppose it proved that Peugeot were right because they won 2 World Championships before Group B was banned.
If you've no idea what we're talking about, and I assume you do because
you're listening to the wrong show.
Yeah, really,
There are no cookery tips coming.
The Birmingham Super Prix was a Formula 3000 race in 1980.
I think it was 86. 6.
Yeah,
was the first
and
one
the
they ran it
support
for.
race was celebrities in Metro 6R4s.
There were a few things though as well. I should have looked this up. I didn't know I was going to mention it.
Was there a Montego race as well? or something
Almost
like that?
certainly, and if there wasn't in my mind now, there is.
Hey!
Montego turbos, torque steering their way around the bull ring.
Just imagine that, and we'll leave you imagining that and imagining the sounds of Formula E cars going. But Formula E cars almost sound better on the road than F1 cars. That's my last thought. You've been listening to Zog,
Goodbye.
to Richard,
Goodbye.
and to me, Gareth, going. Oh yes, and our next on Speed is our summer music compilation. See you for that.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!